the next session. And I mean, I was pretty blown away by last session. What about you guys? Yeah. Finally, Azure Web Apps. But this is even better.
Does it run?
I mean, this topic, not this. I'm going to talk about the Sitecore Experience Accelerator, or SXA. But first I'll introduce myself. My name is Ruud van Falier, and I'm co-founder of ParTech. We're a contracting agency that focuses exclusively on Sitecore. I'm a Sitecore MVP, and I took the time to dive in SXA because I think it's really exciting new product, and it's something that was really missing in Sitecore. So the things that I'm going to discuss are, first I'm going to just basically explain what SXA is. I'm going to show you how to build a web page with it, and explain some of the features that are in SXA. So, what is SXA? Or as Reinhard would say, SXA. It's basically, if I need to describe it in 2 words, it's an accelerator kit. It basically kickstarts your projects, your Sitecore projects. What you get is an out-of-the-box component library, and it features about, I'd say, like 40 components. Sitecore would probably say it's more, but some of them are like really small, or you can use them in multiple instances. So you could count them as multiple components. Out-of-the-box support for local data sources. Who is familiar with local data sources? Okay, so for those other 2 people, I'll briefly explain what it is. It's when you put your data sources underneath the page item in Sitecore. So instead of having like one big pile of data source items, you will just keep your data source items with the page that that are used on. Because a lot of data sources are not really meant to be reusable. I mean, if there's a page with some content about SXA, you only want to show that big piece of content on the SXA page. You're not going to be reusing exactly that same text in other pages. So it makes sense to store the data source underneath the page item. We get an extended experience editor. We can now use drag and drop. We can design our page as a wireframe before we have any visual design. It's all based on the Helix architecture. I've spoken many times about Helix, about the habitat examples, so I won't go into that any further now. I hope that by now most of you are familiar with the Helix architecture. And it increases productivity because it allows you to work in parallel during a project. And what I mean by that is if you look at a regular development process, so the way we did it before SXA, and this is simplified of course, there's a lot more to it, but you would start thinking about the user experience. Once that's like halfway, you can start making a visual design for that. And then when the visual design has most of the things finished, then a front-end developer would start converting that to HTML, and when there's some HTML available, then back-end developers can come in and create components using that HTML. And then when the back-end developers are almost done, you almost got all of the components ready, then finally the content editors can start creating content in Sitecore. And I think this has always been kind of a problematic approach. And you're kind of forced into it because there really wasn't another way. But for a customer, it's really unnatural to wait for 6 months before they can start creating their content. It was also always quite hard with front end and back end waiting for each other to finish stuff. So with SXA, that process would look more like this. Forgot to put on my timer. So you would still do some user experience, and of course you would still need visual design. But you can start with content entry before a front-end or back-end developer or even visual design is finished. And I'm going to show you in a minute why that is. Also, we would need a lot less time if we compare it to the previous one. You would need a lot less time for front-end and back-end because the HTML for most of the components is done because you get the components out of the box. And well, that helps backend as well because there's a lot of things that you don't have to develop anymore. All these basic components that you probably need to use in every site, like carousel or navigation or simple rich text blocks, image blocks. You don't have to spend any time coding anymore on that. Let's start with a little demo of building a page in SXA. So we've got a really small Sitecore environment here. The resolution wouldn't go further than 1024. So, and I'm going to start in the desktop if I can find it. There it is. So what do you get when you install SXA? First of all, SXA it's a separate module. It doesn't come, it doesn't ship automatically with the new Sitecore version. So you need to install it as a module. You also need a separate license for it, or at least it has to be added to your license. It's not free of charge, unfortunately. I can't tell you what it costs because Sitecore can't tell me what it costs. It all depends on your configuration, on the amount of items, on a lot of things. So if you want to start using it, then talk to Sitecore about how you can start. First time I installed it, I was looking for it. Like I finished installing and I was, okay, let's go. Sitecore Experience Accelerator, and I couldn't find it. I looked everywhere and I went to the default home item, opened an experience editor, and wasn't really anything there. That's because, first of all, you need to create a tenant. So these two insert options, they are added when you install the Experience Accelerator. And what a tenant is basically like a sub-organization within your organization. So if you have a big enterprise and you have, maybe you have multiple companies under the same roof like they have here, then each of those companies would be a tenant and they would get their own folder and they can create sites within that folder. So this helps isolating stuff from other in between tenants. So if I create a tenant I add roles to that, then I'm making sure that a content editor for this tenant can only access sites within that tenant folder. So let's create one. Well, actually, I already created one, so let's cancel that. And once you have a tenant, you can create a site. You can see here it runs scripts. That's because it's all based on the Sitecore PowerShell extensions. So let's create a test site, and you can also configure the things like hostname and language here. You can basically set all the site options that you normally set in the Sitecore configuration. You can set them in Sitecore now. So if you're familiar with the multi-site module, they integrated that in Sitecore now. Then you can select features, which are the SXA components that can be used by this site. I will just leave them selected. And we can choose to create a new theme. Well, I will do that now. And by default, the wireframe theme is selected. So let that run for a bit. Now imagine that this is a new project and nobody has really done any work yet. We've just thought about a little bit about the user experience. We know what we want to do with the site, but there's no visual design yet. Nobody has been building any components. And I just want to start by making up a wireframe and maybe start adding some content. Actually runs a little longer than I expected.
So you're using this to kickstart every project you do?
No, I think we'll discuss that afterwards.
Yeah, I just helped you overcome.
So, what we got now is like a boilerplate website. So we've got a home item. Everything is messed up with this resolution. A data folder which will contain all the reusable data sources. So not the local data sources, but the reusable ones. They are all kept within this site because it belongs to that site. If you want to share things across sites, then you probably have to create your own folder for that. And let's open this home item in the Experience Editor. This is new as well. If I right click here now, then there's Experience Editor, which makes a lot of sense. Okay, it's not really that clear here, but there are 3 placeholders by default. That's the header, content, or main, and footer. So this is what you get out of the box, and I think you probably don't really have to change this, because in most cases you can do with header, content, and footer. And there's ways to split this up in more placeholders without changing this default layout. Now, the first thing that's new here is this toolbox, which I can open up. And this contains all the SXA components. So, let's say I want to create a very basic page. I want to split the header into 2 columns. So there's underneath page structure, there's a splitter component, and I can drag and drop that in there. Now, put this on the side. And there's 2 columns in there by default. If I select a component, I can add or remove columns, but we'll do with 2 columns for now. And then we can select the size of each column. If you're familiar with that 960 grid system, which I think most of you are, the page is 960 pixels wide and is divided in a maximum of 12 columns. So it doesn't, this number you can arrange the width of each column. So if I choose 6 for the first one and 6 for the second one, which is 12 in total, I've used up all the width on my page for these 2 columns. Okay, so I've created 2 columns which contain 2 placeholders, or each 1 placeholder. So this way I'm creating a page structure. I'll do the same for my main placeholder, but here I'm going to add, let's use drag and drop. just because we can now. Here I want to use the splitter. Let's see, it's this one for rows. So I'm going to split it into 2 rows now. And then the bottom row, I'm going to use the column splitter, split that up into 2 columns again. And 6, 6. And then the footer will just leave that one placeholder. And I want a logo in my header, and I want some rich text. And you can see here there's rich text and rich text reusable. Same goes for plain HTML, plain HTML reusable. That's the difference between local data source and putting it in that data folder. So if you choose plain HTML, it will automatically store the data source item underneath the page item. If you choose reusable, then you can choose to save it in that data folder it created. Let's put some text in here. Actually, let's edit that HTML and make it H2. So I can edit HTML now. Of course, you can disable that. Nothing has changed there. That's like an image, or actually, let's quickly upload one. Upload. So I've got my own media folder now for this site. There we go. There it is. And I want a big image here as well. Image. I'm still not used to the drag and drop feature. Actually, click the image first. Let's upload another one. And put some text in my footer. Copyright by SUGNL. So this way I can create a page without having to develop anything, without needing visual design. It's still a wireframe, of course. It still needs to be styled, but you can start creating your page structure and adding content before you need any visual design or front-end development. And I'm going to show you later how you can apply styling to this.
Are the columns nestable unlimited?
Sorry?
Are the columns and the rows, are they nestable unlimited?
Yeah. Yeah, it automatically implemented, it implements the dynamic placeholders, so you can nest them unlimited.
So don't tell our customers.
Yeah, so can your customers, yeah.
No, I say don't tell our customers.
Oh, don't tell our customers, yeah.
You should.
I mean, you can create unlimited rows. Yeah, you can split up columns in multiple rows. I haven't tried it, but it should be nestable.
You won't have enough time.
No, I'm not going to try it now, definitely. So that's really quickly showing you how to create a basic page. But that's a single page. and it would take a lot of time if I have to do this for all my pages. So that's why there are page and partial designs. It's really the other way around. It's partial designs and page designs. So with partial designs, you can predefine a design based on that on that layout. So you can basically pre-populate certain placeholders with components, save that as a partial design. You can do that multiple times, so you can create more partial designs. And then with a base design, you can merge all those partial designs into one design. And then you can assign base designs to content items. It looks a little like this. So one partial design could be one where I populated the header and footer placeholder. And then in another partial design, I created a main placeholder with a carousel and two rich text blocks. And then in my base design, I can select these two partial designs, and it will merge them into one final design. And then you can assign this base design to a page content item. I will show you how that works here. And I actually have a different item for that. So this is an empty homepage. Now, first of all, if you want to create a partial design, there is the partial designs icon here. This is where you can select all the partial designs that are existing, and you can insert one to create a new one. If I insert partial design, then I just get an empty page again, empty placeholders, and I can tell which components I want where. So I created, in this example, I created a header and footer partial design. And the main placeholder is just empty. And I created another one, which is page content. And that has an empty header, footer, and has some content components in it. And then next to that is page designs. And I've defined one page design, which is the content design. And the only thing you can do here is select which partial designs you want to be in that page design. This is a default one. I'll explain that one later. And this is my header, footer, and page content partial design. Then, when I have a partial design, I can assign it to a page. So let's get back to my home, which has the default page design, which is just this empty one. And then here you can say pick page design. So it's default now. If I change it to content page and manage to find the that's interesting. Maybe?
Dat vierkantje.
Okay, no. I was going to say, I think I have it. Yeah,
Onderin.
thanks. So nothing happens now, you need to save first, so it reloads. And now this page also has that page design. So this is the new way of defining your presentation details, basically. And so right now I manually pick this page design to be assigned to this page, but you can predefine this for certain templates. there is a bug in here as well, because right now really nothing works anymore. I get this image, these image controls on every field, and the toolbox is empty. Yeah, that just happened while preparing this demo. I'm not sure if it's my instance, but it's an empty instance with just a module installed, and it only happens with my own page designs. It doesn't happen with the default one, so I'm not really sure what's going wrong there. But this is in theory how it works. Right, so now you know how to create a page design which only defines which components are on which page. But we still only have this wireframe layer of styling that. And that's when themes come into play. So the theme consists of custom CSS, JavaScript, and media items. That's fonts, images. And they are all stored in the media library. They're not stored per site or per tenant. They are just stored in one folder. So you can share themes between tenants and sites. If you want to create a new theme, then you need to check that create new theme during site creation. I did that when I created that demo page. So let's see what happens here. So right now, if I select theme here, then you can select a device, but in reality you would just use the default device. I mean, the other devices are not really used that much anymore. So for the default device, the theme right now is wireframe. I can also select a different theme. I created this one when I created this site. Save it. So this is the SUGNL theme. It looks a little different, like different fonts, different background, which is not visible on the beamer. This is just a copy of the default theme that comes with Sitecore. So you have the wireframe theme, and there is a default theme, which is just really simple. And I've made a copy of that. So this is the way of selecting what the page should look like. But how can you edit this? Well, you could go into the media library and find the theme and just change the styles. So there's an entire style sheet file in here. Download that, change it. But there's actually a better way for that. And that's called Creative Exchange. And this is also what helps the parallel working. With Creative Exchange, you can export a theme to an archive, which contains HTML for all the pages, and CSS, JavaScript, and media. Then you can download that archive, just extract it, and you can change the CSS, the JavaScript, the media. You can change everything except the HTML. So the HTML, that structure is defined in the SXA components, and you can change that in Creative Exchange. So it's just meant for styling. So you can export it and then just open the page in your browser and have an offline version of it. Change the CSS, create an archive again when you're done, and you can import it again in Sitecore. So front-end developers, they can just work with these pages and components without having to know anything about Sitecore. They don't even have to know something is happening in Sitecore. You're just giving them static HTML and you're saying, well, style this without changing the HTML. So let's have a quick look at how that works. Oh, this is going to be fun because the import button is outside of the screen. So the export is pretty straightforward. You select the device. I only have one device. Then you can choose to export the current page with subpages, so everything that's a child or a descendant of the current page, or just the whole site. You need to select the site. I don't really know what this does because there's no option of selecting other sites. You can choose to select to export bucketable items too. So by default that's switched off because it's potentially a lot of items. And this is interesting. This is the export mode. If you choose agency drop, it basically exports what you see in preview mode. And you can import that back later on. If you choose for author mode, then it exports what you see in the experience editor while editing. So that helps a lot getting everything to work in the experience editor, because otherwise you wouldn't have access to that HTML. And then the last one is the end user site. So that's not preview mode, that's the normal viewing mode, normal page mode, but you can't import that back anymore. So this could maybe be used if you want to just mock up a site here, then generate HTML and forget about it. Just give it to someone else and let it live offline, or at least away from Sitecore. And then finally, we can where to export to, and by default that's a zip package. And it exports, and finally we get, no wait, I'm going to take that from here. So we get a zip site. And let's see what's in there. Oh, it's actually not as true now. So that's our pages. This is the home page, and this is that one test page. And all the media. And we had one theme, so this is where we can change our styles and JavaScript and media. And then when you change it, you just create another archive from it, with, of course, with the same structure, and you can import that. Let's see if I can somehow reach that import. There it is. Yeah. I'll accept it. So this is the one that we exported. It's stored on the server as well, which is can be quite handy, because if you import something and it breaks down everything or it looks like crap, you can just switch back to what it was before. So let's upload a modified version of that theme. And I just changed one CSS file, changed the background color. Here. And refresh this page. And then it suddenly looks a lot better. This is what we wanted. So that's how teams work. So So what the design process could look like now is you create a new site and create a new team with it, an empty team. Create some partial designs, create a few page designs, then create one page for each design, so you at least have one HTML version of each page design. Export it and give that to a front-end developer, and then parallel to that, the content editor can already start using that page designs to create new pages, enter all the content, and then when front-end development is done, you can import the team back and everything is styled. And that's assuming that you're using out-of-the-box components only, and you wouldn't require a back-end developer, aside from setting it all up, of course. But once it's set up and you have a content developer with enough knowledge of working in Sitecore, you basically wouldn't need us anymore.
Yeah.
How am I on time? No? Usually Andy is...
I know, right? Yeah, we started a little later.
Okay.
I guess you have like 10 minutes or so.
Just want to quickly go into the HTML structure of all the components, because the HTML is something that cannot be changed with the Creative Exchange. So it's something that you need to think about if you create new components for SXA. And Sitecore set it up in such a way that it's as semantic as possible. If you look at the HTML for that empty page, then there's a few places where components are like injected, where you have placeholders. So that's, you have a header, the main or content placeholder, and the footer one. And there's a few additional placeholders for the meta renderings. So I mentioned it when I was showing the page design, that there was one partial design in there, which is default. That takes care of injecting like meta text in the head and the component JavaScript before the end of the body, stuff like that. So all the regular renderings are in the header, content / main or footer placeholder, and then there's a head, body top, and body bottom for meta tags or scripts. Well, basically covered this grid system. So you've got 12 columns in total, and you can size your columns to that. And you can also, that's also new, you can also enable show grid here. I should probably switch back to the wireframe, because my awesome background color is hiding the grids now. So if you enable view grid, there you go. So that's the 12 columns that you have. So this, here you can easily see how large your columns are. And well, the HTML for grid system is quite easy. So this is what comes out if you export it. A row for a div for each row, and then within a row you can have columns. And grid 6 means 2 columns that are evenly spread out across the full grid. And then if you create renderings or use SXA renderings, they all have like a unique component name that is also used as a CSS class name. So all the components follow this structure. Basically, there's some stuff around it for page editor support, for custom classes, but you will have at least this HTML. Yeah. And there's more details on the HTML structure on the side, on the doc side. There's actually quite a lot of documentation on it already. It's not always extensive, but it's been quite useful, at least for me. And then last but not least, this is a simplified list of what comes out of the box with SXA. And I think a lot of sites, you could maybe do like 60–70% of the components with just out of the box stuff from SXA. It's really the customer, the client specific stuff that is probably going to need some custom work. But if you need a breadcrumb, a navigation, carousel, accordion, language selector, maps, video player, like that's all the stuff that you spend so much time on doing over and over again. That is now out of the box. The search is also a nice one. Has quite a lot of functionality. So unless you have like an e-commerce site with hundreds of thousands of products, then I guess this search will do. And of course you can create your own SXA renderings and add them to that list. So, to sum that up, we have improved experience editor experience. You can save on back-end development time because there's a lot of out-of-the-box components, and shorten the development cycle in general because there's more chances to work in parallel, but also because you save time doing components. And front-end developers require no cycle knowledge, and it's also easy to import their work into Sitecore. Because before, if you had you could also have front-end developers without Sitecore knowledge, but then you, as a back-end developer, would be peeling out all that HTML and then putting it back in Sitecore or in your components. Yeah, that concludes it. Like I just said, I think there's a lot of sites that you can the large part can be built with just SXA components. And if you look at event sites like the SUGNL site or MVP Summit site, they can be built or are built entirely in SXA without any interference from backend developers. So I think it's quite an interesting product. That's it for now. Any questions? Yes.
Can you describe which is the performance for marketers Robbert component?
Yeah. All that it does is it allows you to take any web form for marketer form and embed it in your site. And then embed it anywhere in your site. So it's just a wrapper around the web forms for marketers form. Okay.
Is importing the only way to get all the CSS and JavaScript files?
Exporting.
Yeah, exporting then importing.
Yeah.
Well,
no, it's not the only way. You can also take them out of the media library yourself. Because they're stored in the media library as items. So you can go in there, if you just want one CSS file, you can go in there, take it out there, modify it, and put it back in.
Or point to front-end developers work there. Only do changes there.
Yeah, then they,
so you don't have to import all the time.
Need to go into Sitecore. So if you want that, then that's possible. Yeah.
No, they can just work
But
on the media folder, right?
No, it's media library, so it's not. It's in media library, so it's in Sitecore. Yeah.
How is this product meant? Is it really meant to build a production site with this and store your CSS in Sitecore and not use any DFS or stuff like that?
Well, it goes into some of the recommended practices, maybe, by, for example, by storing CSS and JavaScript in Sitecore, in Sitecore database. But it is meant for production sites, yes. I think it's most useful if you have a lot of websites and they need to be managed by non-developers, which, I mean, that's why we have a CMS, right, so that non-developers can manage it. But also, it must, when it needs to be easy to add new sites, this is a great solution. And if you have to work with multiple tenants that manage their own sites, this is a great solution. And yeah, it's really an Accelerator kit.
So does it really replace the normal presentation details and rendering stuff?
Yeah. No, it doesn't replace it. No, it's it hides it. So in the end, it's still regular Sitecore that's underneath it. So if you pick a base design, then SXA will set presentation details for you. So it's hidden for the end user.
So can I cut you guys over? Because I think it's good if we can take a break. If you have any more questions, then just jump Ruud right away. So in 10 minutes. Yeah. Whatever you like. In 10 minutes or so we'll start with the next.